There is a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from doing too much. You can follow the rules. You can show up. You can avoid mistakes, meet expectations, and still feel heavy inside. Not because your life is falling apart, but because your mind is quietly overloaded. If you've ever felt tired without knowing why, this is for you. Most people assume exhaustion comes from external pressure, work, responsibilities, expectations, but in reality, the deepest fatigue comes from internal resistance, from carrying beliefs that are no longer true but still active. You're not tired because you are weak. You're tired because your mind is running outdated programs, and the most dangerous programs are the ones you mistake for truth. Beliefs like "I'm just not that kind of person." "This is how life is. Others can do it, but not me." These thoughts don't feel like beliefs. They feel like facts. That's why they control you. They shape how you interpret events. They decide what you attempt and what you avoid. They determine how much effort you give. And when you give up, and all of this happens quietly without your consent. This is the invisible enemy, not failure, not circumstances, not other people, but the unconscious beliefs you carry about who you are and what is possible for you. This is where mindset detox begins, not as motivation, not as positive thinking, and not as an attempt to fix you. Mindset detox is not about becoming someone new. It is about removing what was never truly yours. From a Stoic perspective, the world itself is not the source of your suffering. Events happen. People behave as they do. Outcomes are uncertain. What creates distress is your interpretation. Two people can face the same situation. One remains steady, the other collapses. The difference is not strength. It is meaning. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. It is not things themselves that disturb us, but the judgments we make about them. Your mind has learned thousands of judgments, most of them unconsciously, from family, from society, music, from early failures, from comparison, from moments when you felt small, rejected, or unseen. Over time, these judgments hardened into beliefs, and those beliefs quietly became the lens through which you see everything. That is why you can improve your habits and still feel stuck. Why you can gain knowledge and still doubt yourself. Why you can do everything right and still feel internally constrained. Because no amount of effort can override a belief that says this is as far as I go. Mindset detox begins with a simple, uncomfortable truth. You are not broken. You are conditioned, and conditioning can be questioned. This audiobook is not here to give you energy. It is here to give you clarity. Clarity about the beliefs that limit you. Clarity about where they came from. Clarity about how they survive and how they dissolve. Over the next 10 chapters, we will move through 3 deliberate phases. First, recognition. You will learn how to identify the invisible beliefs shaping your decisions, emotions, and reactions. Second, destruction. Not through force or denial, but through action by placing pressure on beliefs until they collapse under reality. And finally, reconstruction, where inner strength is rebuilt from the inside out, not as confidence, but as calm, authority, and self-command. This is not a fast process, and it is not dramatic. Stoic strength is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek validation. It shows up as stability under pressure, as discipline without self-hatred, as the ability to act without being ruled by fear or emotion. You do not need the world to change. You need your interpretations to be cleaned. And that begins now. Listen slowly, question deeply, and allow outdated beliefs to fall away. Not because you're chasing a better life, but because you are finally ready to stop carrying what weakens you and start building what makes you unshakable. Chapter 1. Limiting beliefs. The invisible prison. Most prisons don't look like prisons. They have no walls, no guards, no locked doors. Yet, millions of people live inside them every day. A limiting belief is not an aggressive thought. It doesn't demand. It doesn't threaten. It simply assumes It assumes who you are, what you can handle, what you deserve, where your limits lie. And because it feels familiar, you rarely challenge it. This is why limiting beliefs are more dangerous than circumstances. Circumstances can change. Beliefs adapt to survive. A person can leave a difficult environment, gain education, opportunity, even success, and still feel confined, because the prison is no longer external. It has been internalized. Limiting beliefs operate through interpretation, not force. Two people experience the same event. One sees information, the other sees confirmation of inadequacy. One sees pressure as training, the other sees it as proof they are not built for this. The event itself is neutral. The belief is not. Here is a fundamental Stoic truth. Nothing in the outside world limits you as much as the meaning you assign to it. Most people believe their beliefs are logical conclusions based on evidence. In reality, many beliefs are emotional decisions made early in life, then protected by selective reasoning. A child fails once and decides, "I'm not smart." A teenager is rejected and decides, "I'm not enough." An adult takes a risk, falls short, and decides, "I shouldn't try again." These decisions are not truths. They are interpretations frozen in time. But once formed, the mind becomes loyal to them. It looks for evidence that confirms them. It filters out evidence that contradicts them. It adjusts behavior to avoid testing them. This is how a belief becomes invisible. It stops feeling like a thought you have. It starts feeling like the reality you live in. And this is where the prison closes. If you believe you lack confidence, you will hesitate. If you believe you are undisciplined, you will quit early. If you believe success is not meant for you, you will never fully commit. When you don't act, the belief appears proven. The loop reinforces itself. This is not weakness, it is conditioning. And conditioning works best when it is unquestioned. Here is the distinction most people never make. A belief is not the same as truth. A belief is not the same as identity. A belief is not the same as you. You can hold a belief that is inaccurate. You can carry a belief that is outdated. You can question a belief without losing your sense of self. The Stoics were uncompromising about this separation. They understood that freedom begins with awareness. If you cannot see what governs your reactions, you cannot change them. Epictetus did not teach people to fight their thoughts. He taught them to examine their judgments. Because once a belief is seen clearly, it loses its authority. Awareness creates distance. Distance creates choice. Choice creates freedom. This is why limiting beliefs are more dangerous than external obstacles. External obstacles demand strength. Limiting beliefs undermine it. They tell you when to stop before you've started. They convince you to retreat before resistance even appears. They make caution feel like wisdom and fear feel like realism. The prison does not restrain your body. It restrains your perception. And perception determines action. This chapter is not about destroying beliefs yet. That comes later. Right now, your task is simpler and more uncomfortable. You must notice the bars. Notice the quiet rules you live by, the invisible lines you don't cross, the standards you lowered without remembering when. Pay attention to sentences that start with, "I can't, I'm just not, that's not for someone like me." These are not objective observation. They are traces of conditioning. They reveal the structure of your prison. Stoicism does not promise ease. It promises clarity. And clarity can be unsettling because it shows you that much of what limits you is not imposed from the outside but maintained from within. You did not choose these beliefs consciously. But now that you can see them, responsibility begins. Freedom does not start with changing your life. It starts with questioning the invisible assumptions shaping it. And the moment you recognize a belief as a belief, not as truth, the door of the prison begins to open. Chapter 2. How your mind was conditioned without your consent. Every belief you carry feels personal. It feels chosen. It feels earned through experience. Yet most beliefs shaping your life today were formed long before you had awareness, authority, or context. Your mind absorbed rules before it learned how to question them. As a child, you learned through observation, through repetition, through emotional imprint. What received approval became safe. What met resistance became risky. What caused discomfort became something to avoid. This process happened quietly, automatically, and constantly. No permission was requested. Family played the first role. Parents, caregivers, and early authority figures modeled how to respond to stress, conflict, ambition, and failure. Their reactions taught lessons deeper than words ever could. A calm response taught emotional steadiness. A fearful response taught caution. A dismissive response taught self-silencing. Even silence communicated rules. Then came society. School rewarded conformity before mastery. Comparison became measurement. Grades became identity markers. Success looked narrow. Failure felt permanent. By the time you reached adulthood, you might already carried a framework for what felt allowed, realistic, or dangerous. And then experience reinforced it. A rejection created a story. A setback shaped expectation. A moment of embarrassment taught restraint. Each moment added weight. Over time, these experiences merged into beliefs that felt solid and reliable. Yet, intelligence offered no protection here. Highly intelligent people often suffer deeper conditioning. They analyze more. They justify faster. They rationalize limits with precision. An intelligent mind builds convincing explanations for staying small. I understand how the system works. I see the risks clearly. I am being realistic. Realism becomes armor. Fear becomes logic. The mind confuses familiarity with accuracy. What feels known feels safe. What feels unfamiliar triggers resistance. This creates a powerful illusion. The illusion that your current limits reflect truth rather than training. Here is the stoic clarity required at this stage. Past data informs behavior. It never defines potential. Your mind uses past outcomes as predictive tools. That skill once protected you. Now it restricts you. A single failure becomes a reference point. Repeated avoidance becomes identity. Time reinforces the pattern. Soon beliefs operate automatically. You pause before speaking. You hesitate before acting. You lower expectations before effort. Each choice feels reasonable. Each choice strengthens the conditioning. This process carries no malice. It follows efficiency. The mind favors patterns that reduce uncertainty. Even painful patterns feel preferable to unknown territory. That explains why people defend beliefs that weaken them. Oh, they feel stable, they feel predictable, they feel familiar. Responsibility enters here. Responsibility differs from self-blame. Self-blame traps attention in the past. Responsibility restores power in the present. You never chose the conditions that shaped your early beliefs. Yet, awareness changes the rules. Once a belief becomes visible, maintenance becomes a decision. The Stoics placed enormous importance on this distinction. They focused energy on what lay within command, judgment, response, and action. External events shaped experience. Internal interpretation shaped character. Your conditioning shaped your starting point. It never dictated your destination. This chapter invites separation. Separation between origin and ownership, between influence and identity, between history and direction. You can acknowledge influence without surrendering agency. The moment you recognize a belief as learned rather than inherent, leverage appears. Learning implies change, and change requires pressure through action, which arrives in later chapters. For now, awareness remains the discipline. Observe which beliefs trace back to early authority. Notice which fears mirror past experiences. Recognize how comparison shaped self-evaluation. Each recognition weakens unconscious control. Each insight restores margin. Your mind learned to survive. Now it must learn to lead. Survival relied on avoidance. Leadership relies on deliberate choice. This transition requires patience. Conditioning formed through repetition. Clear as throat clarity forms through consistent observation. No rush exists here. Strength develops through accuracy, and accuracy begins by seeing how much of your inner structure came from places that never asked whether it still served you. You carry inherited patterns. You carry borrowed conclusions. You carry outdated strategies. Awareness returns authority. From this point forward, beliefs become candidates for examination rather than commands for obedience. This marks the end of unconscious living and the beginning of disciplined control. Chapter 3. The Comfort Trap. Why people defend their limits. Every limit you defend offers something in return. Safety, familiarity, relief from uncertainty. This exchange explains why people protect beliefs that restrict their growth. A limiting belief rarely feels like a cage. It feels like common sense. It offers a story that keeps effort predictable and risk contained. This suits me. I know my place. I understand how far I go. These statements carry calm. They also carry cost. The mind values comfort above accuracy. Familiar patterns reduce cognitive strain. Predictable routines conserve energy. Known identities require less effort to maintain. From a survival standpoint, this preference makes sense. From a growth standpoint, it creates stagnation. The comfort trap begins with a simple association. Discomfort signals danger. Early experiences taught this lesson. Mistakes brought embarrassment. Expression invited judgment. Risk created exposure. Over time, the mind learned to equate discomfort with threat. Avoidance became strategy. Later in life, this strategy disguises itself as wisdom. Caution feels intelligent. Restraint feels mature. Lowered ambition feels realistic. Yet beneath these labels lies fear of disruption. The mind resists expansion, because expansion destabilizes identity. Growth demands revision. Revision threatens coherence. A belief, even a limiting one, provides structure. It answers questions before they arise. It narrows choices. It removes uncertainty. That efficiency feels calming. This explains why people argue for their limits. They explain why change feels unnecessary. They justify why effort feels excessive. They defend why remaining the same feels rational. The defense feels personal because identity intertwines with belief. Challenge the belief and the self feels questioned. The Stoics understood this dynamic clearly. They viewed comfort as a silent negotiator. Comfort promises peace today. It collects interest tomorrow. Comfort asks for consistency. Growth asks for courage. One maintains the current shape of life. The other reshapes it. The trap deepens when comfort masquerades as self-knowledge. I know myself. This suits my personality. That lifestyle works for others. Such phrases feel grounded. They also freeze possibility. Personality becomes excuse. Preference becomes boundary. Habit becomes destiny. Yet identity remains fluid. Character evolves through repeated action. Capacity expands through challenge. The belief that capacity remains fixed creates a false ceiling. That ceiling feels protective. It shields from failure. It also blocks progress. People defend limits because limits reduce accountability. If success feels unreachable, effort loses urgency. If growth feels unrealistic, stagnation gains justification. The mind avoids exposure to uncertainty by lowering standards. This strategy preserves self-image. I stayed safe. I avoided mistakes. I remained consistent. Consistency feels virtuous. Yet, consistency without direction leads nowhere. The Stoic view places discomfort in a different category. Discomfort serves as signal rather than threat. It indicates edge. It marks expansion. It reveals areas requiring strength. Comfort offers relief. discomfort offers training. One sustains the present, the other builds the future. People rarely fear effort itself. They fear identity loss. Who am I without this story? Who do I become if this belief dissolves? Such questions unsettle the mind. The comfort trap answers them by ending inquiry. This is enough. This works. This stays. The price appears later. Frustration grows. Resentment accumulates. Energy fades. Life feels constrained without clear cause. The Stoics warned against this quiet erosion. They viewed comfort without purpose as decay. A life guided by ease alone loses direction. Strength requires friction. Clarity requires pressure. You discover limits through resistance. You surpass limits through deliberate exposure. Living below capacity feels calm at first. Over time, it creates restlessness. That restlessness signals misalignment. The soul senses unused strength. This chapter asks for observation rather than force. Notice moments where defense arises. Observe explanations offered quickly. Listen for phrases that justify avoidance. These signals point toward comfort protection. Ask where safety outweighs growth. Notice where familiarity overrides aspiration. Comfort feels kind. Comfort feels reasonable. Comfort feels deserved. Yet comfort extracts a hidden toll. It shrinks tolerance for challenge. It reduces appetite for effort. It narrows vision. The Stoic path invites a different agreement. Temporary discomfort in exchange for lasting capacity. Controlled exposure rather than reckless risk. Deliberate challenge rather than impulsive action. This approach honors discipline over impulse. Growth occurs through chosen strain. You never remove the comfort trap through argument. You outgrow it through action. Later chapters explore that process. For now, awareness remains enough. See how often limits receive defense. Recognize how comfort frames those defenses. Once seen clearly, comfort loses authority. And when comfort loses authority, expansion becomes possible. Chapter 4. The Stoic way to question everything you believe. Stoicism never asks you to suppress emotion. It trains you to examine interpretation. Emotion follows meaning. Meaning arises from judgment. Change the judgment, and emotion adjusts its force. This principle sits at the center of Stoic practice. Every experience arrives as raw data. Sound, sight, words, outcomes. These events hold no built-in meaning. Meaning enters through interpretation. A raised voice becomes threat. A delay becomes rejection. A mistake becomes identity. The Stoic approach separates experience into 3 layers: event, judgment, response. This separation restores control. Events occur outside command. Judgment lives within command. Response follows judgment. Most people collapse these layers into one. They experience judgment as fact. They respond automatically. Stoicism introduces distance. Distance creates leverage. The first discipline involves identifying the moment interpretation appears. Pause at the instant meaning forms. Notice the sentence arising internally. Recognize the label applied to the event. This means failure. This proves inadequacy. This shows danger. These statements feel immediate and convincing. They deserve scrutiny. Stoic questioning avoids argument. It avoids force. It avoids emotional struggle. Instead, it applies precision. Ask 3 deliberate questions. First, what happened? Describe the event using observable terms only. Remove adjectives. Remove conclusions. Second, what meaning did I assign? Identify the judgment layered onto the event. Name it clearly. Third, what response followed? Notice emotion, behavior, impulse. This process exposes the mechanism. Once exposed, interpretation loses automatic authority. The Stoics refer to this as ruling the ruling faculty. Your mind governs life through judgment. Examination governs judgment. This discipline changes how beliefs operate. A belief remains powerful only while unexamined. Examination introduces friction. Friction slows reaction. Slower reaction creates choice. Choice opens freedom. Another core Stoic principle enters here: the dichotomy of control. Some things depend on you. Some things depend on circumstance. Beliefs often blur this boundary. A missed opportunity feels personal. Another person's reaction feels decisive. External outcomes feel like verdicts. Stoicism restores alignment. Effort belongs within command. Judgment belongs within command. Character belongs within command. Outcome belongs elsewhere. When belief ties self-worth to outcome, suffering follows. Question that tie. Ask where control ends. Ask where responsibility begins. This inquiry strips false burdens. Many beliefs survive because they answer questions quickly. Speed creates comfort. Accuracy requires patience. Stoic questioning slows the process deliberately. Instead of asking, "What does this mean about me?" ask, "What interpretation did I choose?" Instead of asking, "Why does this feel threatening?" ask, "Which judgment created this feeling?" This shift removes personalization. It transforms belief from command into hypothesis. Hypotheses invite testing. Testing dissolves illusion. Stoicism favors testing through lived experience rather than mental debate. Thought challenges thought endlessly. Action challenges belief decisively. Yet action without clarity creates chaos. This chapter builds clarity. Clarity prepares ground for action. Beliefs also survive through emotional attachment. A belief offers identity. Identity offers stability. Questioning feels destabilizing. The Stoics embraced instability as training. They practiced voluntary discomfort to sharpen discernment. Cold, silence, restraint. These practices weakened attachment to comfort-based beliefs. Comfort loses power when exposure increases tolerance. The Stoic path encourages gentle pressure. Pressure reveals structure. Structure reveals weakness. Weakness reveals opportunity for refinement. This chapter invites a shift in posture. Move from belief ownership to belief examination. Hold beliefs lightly. Observe their effects. Track their consequences. Ask which beliefs expand capacity. Ask which beliefs restrict it. Beliefs serve function. Functions evolve. A belief that served survival earlier may hinder leadership later. Stoic wisdom adapts function to phase. Rigidity signals stagnation. Flexibility signals strength. This approach builds internal sovereignty. You rule judgment. Judgment shapes emotion. Emotion informs action. Each layer returns authority inward. The result feels quiet, controlled, grounded. Reaction slows, clarity sharpens, choice expands. This discipline requires repetition. Each event becomes training. Each reaction becomes data. No perfection exists here. Progress arises through consistency. The Stoic way replaces certainty with clarity. Clarity outperforms certainty under pressure. Beliefs lose dominance when subjected to reasoned examination. And once beliefs lose dominance, strength emerges. Strength built through awareness endures. Chapter 5. Destroying limiting beliefs through action. Beliefs rarely collapse through thinking alone. They survive reflection. They survive analysis. They even survive insight. A belief dissolves only when reality contradicts it repeatedly. This is why action stands as the most powerful force in mental change. A limiting belief exists as prediction. It predicts failure, rejection, inadequacy, or loss. As long as prediction remains untested, it feels accurate. Action introduces evidence. Small deliberate action challenges belief at its foundation. The Stoics placed action above speculation. They valued lived proof over internal debate. A belief claims authority. Action questions that authority. Consider how beliefs protect themselves. A belief says this effort leads nowhere. The mind avoids effort. Avoidance prevents disproof. The belief remains intact. This cycle repeats quietly. Action breaks the cycle. Action forces contact with reality. Even modest action creates tension. That tension exposes exaggeration. Beliefs rely on absolute predictions. Reality responds with nuance. A belief predicts collapse. Action reveals resilience. A belief predicts rejection. Action reveals neutrality or acceptance. A belief predicts incapacity. Action reveals adaptability. The belief weakens with each encounter. This process requires precision. Random action lacks focus. Deliberate action targets belief directly. Identify a belief restricting behavior, then choose action that contradicts its claim. If a belief claims incapability, choose action demanding effort. If a belief claims rejection, choose action involving expression. If a belief claims fragility, choose action requiring endurance. The action remains small yet specific. Stoic discipline favors consistency over intensity. Repeated exposure builds authority. Authority transfers from belief to experience. This shift restores confidence grounded in reality rather than fantasy. Motivation plays a minor role here. Motivation fluctuates. Discipline remains stable. The Stoics trained discipline deliberately. They acted according to principle rather than mood. Mood reflects state. Principle reflects standard. Belief dissolves when standard governs action. Waiting for motivation strengthens belief. Acting through discipline weakens it. This chapter emphasizes reversal. Beliefs maintain strength through avoidance. Action replaces avoidance with contact. Contact produces data. Data reshapes belief. The mind respects evidence. Action supplies evidence. This process feels uncomfortable. Discomfort signals pressure applied to structure. Pressure creates adaptation. Adaptation builds strength. The Stoics welcomed discomfort as training ground. They practiced restraint to build control. They practiced effort to build endurance. They practiced simplicity to build independence. Each practice challenged beliefs about comfort, need, and identity. Over time, belief yielded to capacity. Belief claims permanence. Action reveals flexibility. One action rarely dismantles belief entirely. Repetition completes the work. Each repetition chips authority away. Confidence grows quietly. Confidence built through action differs from confidence built through affirmation. Affirmation speaks. Action demonstrates. Demonstration convinces the mind. The mind trusts experience over argument. Action also clarifies identity. Identity follows behavior. Repeated action creates self-define. A person who acts becomes capable. A person who avoids becomes constrained. Identity forms through pattern. Pattern emerges through discipline. Discipline dissolves belief. This chapter marks transition. Earlier chapters focused on recognition and examination. This chapter introduces engagement. Engagement shifts theory into practice. Choose actions aligned with principle. Principle guides selection. Select actions that challenge belief without chaos. Avoid extremes. Favor precision. Small victories accumulate power. Power stabilizes behavior. Behavior reshapes belief. The Stoic path emphasizes mastery through repetition. Consistency outruns intensity. Intensity fades. Consistency compounds. Belief fades under compound evidence. This process demands patience. Beliefs formed through years of repetition. Dissolution mirrors formation. Each action serves as a vote against limitation. Each vote strengthens capacity. Eventually, belief loses coherence. It no longer matches experience. At that moment, belief dissolves. No confrontation required, no declaration required. Reality speaks. Action rewrites internal law. This chapter invites commitment. Commitment to action guided by reason. Commitment to discipline over impulse. Commitment to evidence over assumption. Through action, beliefs lose authority. Through discipline, strength emerges. The Stoic principle stands clear. Action remains the final judge of belief. Chapter 6. Identity. Reset. You are your present standard. Identity shapes behavior long before motivation appears. Every choice answers a quiet question. Who am I in this moment? Most people treat identity as history. Past actions become labels. Old experiences become definitions. This approach traps growth. A story repeats. I have always been this way. This fits my nature. This matches my past. Such language locks direction. Stoic philosophy treats identity differently. Identity lives in the present standard you uphold. Standard governs action. Action reinforces character. Character defines identity. This sequence restores agency. Past behavior provides data. Present discipline sets direction. A person remains free to redefine identity through consistent action. The trap appears when history gains authority. Failure becomes identity. Success becomes pressure. Reputation becomes boundary. The mind clings to familiar roles. Familiarity feels stable. Stability feels safe. Yet safety, built on old standards, restricts expansion. Stoic practice replaces narrative with standard. Instead of asking who you have been, ask what you uphold. Instead of reviewing past mistakes, establish present rules. Rules create structure. Structure creates reliability. Reliability creates strength. Identity emerges from repetition of chosen standards. Habit and identity differ. Habit describes behavior pattern. Identity describes self-perception. Change habit without identity, shift and relapse follows. Shift identity through standard, and habit aligns naturally. Stoics focused on character over comfort. Character grows through consistent conduct. Conduct follows principle. Principle outlasts emotion. This chapter introduces a crucial reset. Release attachment to old stories. Stories explain past events. Standards govern future action. A story says this happened. A standard says this is how I act. Standards remove negotiation. A person with standards avoids internal debate. Action becomes automatic. Automatic action conserves energy. Energy redirects toward execution. This creates calm authority. Calm authority feels steady. It does not seek validation. It relies on alignment. Alignment occurs when behavior matches standard. Stoic identity values alignment above appearance. External perception fluctuates. Internal standard remains stable. Strength flows from this stability. Many people confuse identity with personality. Personality describes tendencies. Identity describes commitments. Tendencies shift. Commitments anchor. A disciplined standard overrides emotional variation. Emotion rises, standard holds. Emotion falls, standard holds. This reliability builds self-rust. Self-rust builds inner strength. Inner strength arises through evidence. Each time action honors standard, identity strengthens. Each time action violates standard, identity weakens. This feedback remains neutral. It informs refinement. Stoic discipline embraces feedback without drama. Drama feeds ego. Feedback feeds growth. This chapter invites you to design standards deliberately. Choose standards aligned with values rather than comfort. A standard might involve effort, restraint, or consistency. Standards feel demanding. They also feel liberating. Liberation comes from reduced indecision. Decision fatigue drains power. Standards remove choice. Remove choice and discipline becomes sustainable. Identity solidifies through simplicity. Simple rules, clear conduct, consistent execution. This simplicity produces strength. Strength carries silence. A strong identity speaks through action. Words become unnecessary. The Stoic approach values quiet proof. Proof convinces the mind. Identity shifts gradually. Each action deposits evidence. Evidence compounds. Eventually, the old story loses relevance. History fades. Standard remains. At this point, identity aligns with capacity. Capacity expands through continued challenge. Challenge reinforces standard. Standard defines identity. This loop builds resilience. Resilience survives pressure. Pressure reveals structure. Structure reflects preparation. Preparation defines strength. This chapter marks a turning point. Earlier chapters dismantled belief authority. This chapter establishes identity, authority. Authority shifts inward from belief to action, from story to standard, from reaction to discipline. Identity becomes deliberate. Deliberate identity produces calm power. Power grounded in consistency endures. The Stoic path offers this reset. You carry no obligation to remain defined by past behavior. You carry responsibility to uphold present standards. Standards shape character. Character shapes destiny. This is Identity Reset, Chapter 7, Rebuilding Inner Strength from the Inside Out. Inner strength carries a quiet quality. It never announces itself. It never seeks approval. It never rushes to prove anything. Inner strength operates beneath the surface, shaping response or decision, and endurance long before pressure arrives. Many people confuse inner strength with confidence. Confidence rises and falls with results. Inner strength remains steady regardless of outcome. Confidence depends on feedback. Inner strength depends on structure. Stoic philosophy places strength inside command rather than circumstance. Strength begins with self-mastery. Self-mastery involves three foundational pillars: discipline, self-control, and absolute responsibility. Each pillar supports the others. Remove one, and stability weakens. Discipline forms the base. Discipline governs action independent of mood. Mood fluctuates. Energy shifts, circumstances vary, discipline persists. A disciplined person acts according to standard rather than feeling. This consistency creates reliability. Reliability creates trust. Trust in oneself builds inner strength. Every act of discipline reinforces identity. Each completed action sends a message inward. I follow through. Over time, this message reshapes self-perception. Strength accumulates quietly. Self-control forms the second pillar. Self-control regulates reaction. Reaction arises before thought. Impulse seeks immediate expression. Stoic training introduces delay. Delay creates space. Space allows choice. Choice preserves dignity. Self-control does not suppress emotion. It channels emotion. Anger becomes clarity. Fear becomes alertness. Desire becomes direction. This transformation requires practice. Each moment of restraint strengthens command. Command stabilizes character. Character shapes destiny. Absolute responsibility forms the third pillar. Responsibility restores power. Blame disperses energy. Responsibility concentrates it. A Stoic accepts authorship over response. Events influence experience. Interpretation directs behavior. Ownership of interpretation returns authority. Authority fuels strength. Strength, grounded in responsibility, avoids fragility. Fragility emerges when control feels external. Internal command eliminates fragility. Together, discipline, self-control, and responsibility create an internal framework. This framework supports strength independent of recognition. Strength built internally resists erosion. External praise inflates confidence. External criticism deflates it. Inner strength remains unaffected. The Stoics valued this stability. They trained to remain composed under praise and pressure alike. Composure signals mastery. Mastery produces silence. Silence holds power. People with inner strength speak less. They react slower. They choose carefully. Their presence carries weight. Weight comes from alignment. Alignment occurs when action matches principle. Principle guides conduct. Conduct reinforces identity. Identity anchors strength. This process unfolds gradually. Inner strength grows through repetition. Each disciplined choice adds capacity. Each restrained reaction builds control. Each responsible interpretation reinforces sovereignty. Time compounds these effects. The result feels subtle at first. Calm replaces urgency. Clarity replaces noise. Endurance replaces intensity. Intensity burns quickly. Endurance sustains progress. Stoic strength values endurance. Endurance survives long paths. Many people chase visible power. They seek dominance, recognition, or influence. Inner strength follows a different path. It seeks stability. Stability allows consistent progress. Progress compounds. Compounding strength outperforms bursts of effort. This chapter emphasizes construction rather than appearance. Rebuilding inner strength involves internal alignment. Alignment reduces friction. Reduced clears through friction, conserves energy. Conserved energy fuels persistence. Persistence defines success. The Stoics trained this persistence through daily practice. Small actions repeated with intention, morning discipline, midday restraint, evening reflection. Each practice reinforced command. Reflection sharpened awareness. Awareness refined judgment. Judgment guided action. This loop sustained strength. Inner strength also includes tolerance for discomfort. Discomfort signals growth. Avoidance shrinks capacity. Exposure expands it. Controlled exposure builds resilience. Resilience supports composure. Composure maintains clarity. Clarity informs decision. Decision shapes outcome. Inner strength flows through this chain. Strength built externally relies on control of environment. Strength built internally relies on control of self. The second approach offers permanence. Environment shifts. Self-command endures. People with inner strength remain steady during chaos. Chaos amplifies instability. Stability becomes advantage. Advantage compounds through time. This chapter invites commitment to internal construction, release focus on validation, redirect focus toward alignment. Alignment builds confidence grounded in reality. Reality respects preparation. Preparation breeds capability. Capability sustains progress. Inner strength remains the quiet power you carry forward. It requires patience. It rewards consistency. Stoic wisdom honors this path. Strength earned internally never disappears. Chapter 8. Emotional control. After the detox, when old beliefs dissolve, emotion rises. This phase surprises many people. They expect relief. They expect lightness. They expect clarity without resistance. Instead, emotion intensifies. Anger surfaces. Sadness emerges. Restlessness appears. This reaction follows a clear pattern. Clears throat. Old beliefs once acted as filters. Their organized experience, they provided explanation. When those filters disappear, raw emotion becomes visible. This moment defines the detox process. Emotional control begins here. Stoic philosophy treats emotion as information rather than enemy. Emotion signals interpretation. Interpretation signals judgment. Judgment reveals internal alignment. Emotional control does not involve suppression. It involves leadership. Leadership requires observation, acceptance, and deliberate response. Observation comes first. Observe emotion as movement within the body. Tension in the chest, heat in the face, acceleration in breath. These sensations carry no instruction. They exist as signals. The Stoic approach begins by separating sensation from story. Sensation appears automatically. Story appears through interpretation. Control enters through that separation. Once sensation stands alone, intensity decreases. Emotion loses urgency. Urgency dissolves when attention stabilizes. This practice requires patience. Emotion seeks expression. Control introduces containment. Containment preserves dignity. Dignity strengthens authority. Authority calms reaction. Acceptance follows observation. Clears throat. Acceptance acknowledges presence without resistance. Resistance amplifies emotion. Acceptance diffuses it. Acceptance involves permission. Permission for emotion to exist without action. This permission removes pressure. Pressure fuels escalation. Escalation drives impulsive behavior. Acceptance breaks that cycle. The Stoics practiced this discipline daily. They observed emotion as passing weather. Weather changes, sky remains. The mind functions as sky, emotion functions as movement. Control arises through identification with the observer rather than the movement. This perspective creates stability. Stability supports clarity. Clarity informs action. Action guided by clarity preserves alignment. After detox, emotional patterns shift without limiting beliefs. Emotion loses familiar explanation. Fear no longer ties to identity. Anger no longer ties to defense. Sadness no longer ties to permanence. This shift creates unfamiliar territory. Unfamiliarity produces discomfort. Discomfort invites impulsive response. Emotional control guards against this impulse. The Stoic response emphasizes deliberate delay. Delay creates space. Space restores choice. Choice defines freedom. A simple practice supports this phase. Pause when emotion arises. Name the sensation. Label the emotion. Wait before acting. This sequence slows reaction. Slower reaction protects alignment. Alignment maintains strength. Emotion carries energy. Energy seeks direction. Control redirects energy toward constructive action. Anger becomes resolve. Fear becomes alertness. Sadness becomes reflection. This transformation occurs through practice. Practice strengthens command. Command stabilizes character. Character guides behavior. Behavior shapes outcome. Emotional control supports endurance. Endurance sustains progress. Progress compounds strength. The Stoics valued emotional endurance above emotional comfort. Comfort fades. Endurance remains. This chapter emphasizes mastery through familiarity. Familiarity with emotion reduces fear. Fear of emotion amplifies reaction. Knowledge reduces fear. Observe emotion repeatedly. Each observation weakens intensity. Intensity declines through exposure. Exposure builds tolerance. Tolerance supports composure. Composure enhances judgment. Judgment refines action. This cycle defines emotional control. Another Stoic principle enters here. Voluntary hardship. Voluntary hardship trains emotional regulation. Cold exposure, silence, restraint. These practices challenge emotional reflex. They teach endurance under discomfort. Endurance carries into daily life. Daily stress loses power. Power shifts inward. Emotional control also requires self-compassion. Compassion supports learning. Learning refines discipline. Harsh judgment fuels resistance. Resistance fuels reaction. Gentle correction supports growth. Stoic compassion emphasizes improvement rather than punishment. Each emotional episode becomes training. Training builds mastery. Mastery feels calm. Calm reduces internal noise, distorts perception. Clarity emerges through calm. Clarity enhances leadership. Leadership governs response. Response shapes environment. Environment reflects internal order. This reciprocal relationship strengthens emotional command. After detox, emotional range expands. Sensitivity increases. Awareness sharpens. This expansion requires containment. Containment protects stability. Stability preserves progress. People without emotional control confuse expression with honesty. Expression releases pressure temporarily. Control preserves direction permanently. The Stoic path values direction over release. Release fades quickly. Direction compounds. This chapter invites commitment to emotional leadership. Leadership requires presence. Presence anchors attention. Attention governs experience. Experience shapes identity. Identity stabilizes behavior. Behavior sustains strength. Emotional control serves as a bridge between belief and action. Belief dissolves. Emotion surfaces. Control guides integration. Integration completes detox. This process requires consistency. Daily practice strengthens command. Moment-by-moment awareness refines as skill. Skill builds mastery. Mastery supports freedom. Freedom emerges as calm under pressure. Calm under pressure defines Stoic strength. Strength grounded in control endures. This chapter marks maturation. From belief dismantling to emotional integration. Integration prepares the foundation for a sustainable discipline. Discipline shapes daily life. Daily life reflects inner order. Inner order creates quiet power. That power carries forward. Emotional control after detox also reshapes patience. Patience emerges when urgency dissolves. Urgency accelerates reaction. Reaction sacrifices judgment. Judgment suffers under speed. Control restores timing. Timing protects accuracy. Accuracy preserves dignity. A strong emotional system responds according to values rather than impulse. Impulse seeks relief. Values seek alignment. Alignment sustains progress. After detox, emotional waves feel sharper because awareness increases. Awareness magnifies sensation before mastery stabilizes response. This stage requires tolerance. Tolerance develops through repeated exposure without escalation. Each emotional rise becomes practice. Practice builds familiarity. Familiarity reduces fear. Fear intensifies reaction. Reduced fear restores composure. Composure signals authority. Authority governs response. Another shift appears in decision M. Emotion often demands immediate resolution. Control delays resolution. Delay invites perspective. Perspective reveals options. Options restore agency. Agency strengthens confidence grounded in choice. This confidence resists pressure. Pressure tests emotional structure. Structure holds when trained consistently. The Stoic path treats emotional moments as training grounds rather than obstacles. Every irritation offers refinement. Every frustration offers calibration. Every surge offers strengthening. This mindset transforms emotion into resource. Resource fuels growth. Growth requires integration. Integration occurs when emotion, reason, and action align. Alignment stabilizes inner climate. A stable inner climate supports sustained effort. Effort guided by emotional control avoids burnout. Burnout arises from unmanaged reaction. Managed emotion preserves energy. Energy invested wisely compounds capacity. Capacity enhances resilience. Resilience defines emotional mastery. Mastery appears subtle. Subtle mastery endures. This supplemental practice completes emotional detox. Emotion, moves freely, response remains governed, behavior reflects discipline. Through this balance, emotional control becomes strength rather than restraint. Strength expressed calmly remains unshaken under pressure. Chapter 9, Daily Mindset Detox. System. Transformation survives through structure. Inspiration fades. Motivation fluctuates. Systems endure. A mindset detox succeeds only when supported by daily practice. The Stoic approach favors rhythm over intensity. Rhythm creates stability. Stability supports strength. Strength compounds through time. This chapter introduces a simple daily system designed to preserve clarity, reinforce discipline, and prevent regression. The system requires 5 to 10 minutes. Consistency matters more than duration. The first element involves writing. Writing externalizes thought. Thought loses authority once visible. Each day, write a single page. Record dominant thoughts. Capture emotional patterns. Note recurring reactions. This practice reveals repetition. Repetition exposes conditioning. Conditioning weakens under observation. Writing removes ambiguity. Ambiguity fuels confusion. Clarity restores command. The Stoics practiced reflection as daily hygiene. Mental hygiene preserves order. Order supports control. The second element involves observation.